Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody and Happy New Year. Our first meeting of the year. I'm back in the snow. Right, I guess we ought to start with apologies for absence. Oh, incidentally, we're not quorate. There's only 2 councillors in the room. So, but hopefully any recommendations will be picked up anyway.
Yes, Chair. So apologies received from Councillor Lloyd and Councillor Uppal.
Thank you for that. Are there any declarations of interest on matters on this agenda? Take that as a no. I don't think I have any remarks apart from Happy New Year. So minutes of the 3rd of November. Has everybody had a chance to read them? Are we content?
Content.
Good.
Okay, thank you for that. The 2 in the room agree. Recommendations tracker. Thank you for doing this, Lindsay. It's helpful. I guess we're interested in the column on the right-hand side, which is the where we are with the officers' actions on our recommendations. So do you just want to pop through these, Lindsay, please?
Yes, Chair. So updates are included within the table on page 7 within your pack. So if there is any specific information or additional information that members would like, please let me know, and we can take that back and provide that additional information to you.
Is everybody comfortable with the progress on them? I mean, it appears to me that the officers have picked up and are acting on most of them. Yeah. So, and there's 1 or 2 where there's further information to be provided, but in general terms, the recommendations have been accepted. So we'll move on, I think, now to the first substantive item on the agenda, which is the report on the integrated settlement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And good morning, everyone, and happy New Year as well. Yes, so I'll kind of primarily present on the integrated settlement 6-month report. So as indicated in the paper, this is kind of our first important milestone when it comes to us reporting into government. So the first integrated settlement was for a 1-year settlement for £389 million. I guess a brief reminder that it was a consolidation of funding lines, so it wasn't kind of new or additional funding that was coming into the region, but was a consolidation of 21 individual funding lines into a single pot where we had additional financial flexibilities in a way that we could then use that funding to better meet our priorities. So, for example, one of the areas where we used that flexibility was in some of the kind of local growth funding, where we're able to flip some of the funding that normally would just ring fence for capital into then revenue funding that then allowed us to support more jobs within kind of local authority areas that were then delivering some of our local growth and employment activity. And so the first programme board meeting, which took place on the 5th of December, was then a checkpoint for us to then report on progress, both in terms of how we were delivering spend and meeting outcomes. And again, the key thing that we're how to account for the integrated settlement is the outcomes framework that we agreed with government, and whether we were on track with them meeting those outcomes and target indicators. So overall, we had 10 outcomes that we negotiated and agreed with government. 8 that we were reporting as being green, and 2 that we were reporting as being amber. So government did endorse and sign off those self-assessment kind of recommendations as being accurate. And I think the 2 that are amber, I think one was related to adult skills, which I think we'll pick up in a later point on the agenda. And then the second was a kind of transport related outcome. And I know that Transport Overview and Scrutiny Committees has received a separate paper, which I think is going to explore the progress of that outcome in more detail. The programme board also endorsed our progress towards meeting the recommendations of the readiness check. So before we received the integrated settlement, Deloitte were appointed to do a check as to our readiness to carry out the functions of the integrated settlement, which produced a number of urgent and slightly non-urgent recommendations. So the 2 urgent recommendations were met and completed before the programme board meeting, and again there's now been significant progress in the remainder. So government did endorse our progress towards meeting that. So for the programme board itself, as mentioned, this was the first time we'd had the programme board meeting. There was kind of senior representation from across government. I think the meeting began by endorsing and giving positive feedback on the way that we had engaged with this process, while acknowledging that as the first time there will be things that we can tweak moving forward. I think there was definitely an intention to use programme board meetings to provide a significant and sufficient challenge in terms of the information that we were providing on our progress. And so there was, I guess, significant discussion on some of the indicators and progress updates that we were provided to ensure that there is that sufficient detail to then provide government with enough context. But overall, as mentioned, there was a sense that we were both providing an accurate assessment of the progression of our outcomes. There were several areas where we were asked to provide information on some of the innovative ways that we had used the funding to better deliver outcomes across the region, especially in some of the areas to do with business support and the retrofit pilots. And also a real sense that moving forward, there'd be an opportunity for us to use those bilateral conversations that we have with government department to provide more of those positive stories and context. So overall, I think a really positive start in terms of the information that we were provided. The next meeting will be in June, so it is a kind of 6-monthly process. And as mentioned, there will be opportunities beforehand to just continue to provide that confidence that we are on track with the delivery of outcomes. I might turn to Claire to see if there's anything she wants to add from a kind of financial standpoint, but then we'll also then open up to see if there are any comments or questions.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So just to say, just to put what Dan said, really positive conversation, and we discussed the level of spend for the financial year and the level of contracted spend that we anticipate by the end of financial year, and also our proposal to roll forward an element into next financial year, which is supported. There are 2 areas, as Dan said, that are currently at amber. We have to work forward a proposal and demonstrate how we get those to green. And we'll come back to government in February for that. But they were supportive of our approach. So we expect to be able to carry forward the funds required and maintain that pace then into the new financial year, which is really important that we get that commitment now to carry forward the funding so that we can carry on and we don't delay at all. So we've just got that one area that we need to demonstrate so that we can carry forward that into the new year, but overall positive position, particularly for a first year from where we started, I think. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you for that. Members? Yeah. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's really a very promising report that shows lots of really good stuff happening. I just want to clarify something on the amber point around the level 3s. So Claire, are you saying that the intention is to try and push that into the next financial year so we can sort of double them up so we do meet the target so it goes green in the next financial year, or is, because I know that it says that we're unlikely to hit the overall sort of stretch target there. I'm just trying to understand what's the consequence of not meeting that, and whether the government are likely to allow us to push that into the next year if possible.
Hi, so I'm Richard Smith. I'm Head of Insight and Intelligence inside the Employment Skills Directorate. So, for the level 3 target, we set an ambitious target of 14,200, and that was a stretch target which we knew was ambitious at the time. Now, we're not intending at this point to roll those numbers forward, but we are looking at how we set targets for next year. The discussions that we've had with government have focused on the fact that we're unlikely to meet the 14,200, but what we want to do is maintain the focus and on the reasons for that, which are a focus on higher quality level 3s, which cost more and take longer to deliver. We could meet the 14,200 target if we go for lower quality, delivered quickly, with consequently little less impact on the individuals that get those qualifications. So that's then what we've been concentrating on.
Makes sense.
I would totally support that approach. A number of years ago, I was a quality director for a company. We had an important standard we had to meet. I rang the MD on the Sunday, when the auditors were coming in on the Monday, I said, I think we ought to pull this audit. He said, why? You think we're going to fail? I said, no, I think we're going to pass. And what they had done is done the work to get the ticks in the boxes rather than do the stuff that was really important. I think we are of a mind that we totally support the let's get it right rather than get it quickly wrong.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, just coming again, Chair. I mean, if the government are going to support that approach, that's like I say, that's absolutely the right thing to be doing. You know, it's part of the growth plan and everything that we talk about in this committee is always about high quality jobs and skills, isn't it? You know, so I don't know. So if the government are going to support that approach, then that's really positive. You know, I suppose is that the thing that needs to change to get us towards the green, the green on the RAG rating. Just the government agreeing to that, or what's the next steps to get us to that point in the green?
Well, I think for us, the discussions at this point are just try to get government comfortable and accepting of our approach. Yeah. Now, whether that is labelled amber or green isn't necessarily for us the main point here. But I know what you mean. We want to be rated green because we want, reputationally to show how strong the delivery is. I think I don't think we're not likely to get to 14,200, but we'll get close to 14,200. And so then there's, I guess, a discussion with government about whether we have a binary issue of whether 14,200 or 14 is green, and then 14,000. 199 is not. So I think we would probably end up rating ourselves as green if we get close, and we can sort of signify it to them and show them the quality of what we're doing.
So
I guess just a bit build on that in terms of the kind of principles of how we kind of set the targets and ratings moving forward is so in advance of each spending review period, we'll then kind of agree the outcomes framework, which will then have the targets associated with it. So we're currently in the process of doing that for the multi-year period. I think there was an interesting conversation in the program board meeting as to how you make those kind of in-flight adjustments. So actually, if you set a target and actually you realise that for a number of different reasons that could be outside your control, we need to adjust that mid-spending review. How do you account for that? And so there's probably two ways you could do it. Either you provide an opportunity to then adjust the target, or you kind of say, it's not going to be green, it'll be amber, but then we'll provide the contextual information to explain why. So there's probably two different approaches we could take.
Yeah.
Miguel, did you have something to add?
Yes, briefly. So the question of amber and green relates not only to the numbers and the outputs, but also to the outcomes, the quality and the impact. We're moving now into that new world in which we could see less, and we are seeing less counseling level 3, which in effect doesn't allow you to counsel professionally, and much more of level 3s in areas like advanced manufacturing, construction, and the priority areas according to the West Midlands Growth Plan. So if we compare this year to last year, we are seeing that colleges have delivered already 423 more enrollments in level 3 compared to last year. But if we then look under the bonnet at the detail, we could see that some colleges are delivering up to 79% of their delivery on priority areas, whereas last year would have been 40% and the year before even less. So this is a methodical approach. It's difficult to move the tanker in the right direction quickly, and we want also this growth to be sustainable. So it's important to keep reminding the government about the impact. So we talk to them at different levels, including DFE at a more technical level, and they will be advising MCLG, who are less acquainted with the nuance and the detail of skills delivery. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. I mean, it is in the next paper we are going to look at the level 3 qualifications, and I must admit I'm not that keen on increasing the number of people we help with philosophy, but I am really keen on the number of people who do construction, IT, health and social care, and all of those other priority areas, advanced manufacturing, all of those other very important areas which actually are going to help the region. I'm not interested in hitting targets. I'm interested in delivering results. So I think members on online in favour of that approach, shall we endorse this approach of getting it right rather than doing it quick? I'm sure Lindsay can come up with a better wording than that. You, sorry, Councillor McKay.
Well, yeah, Mackie, McKay, you and I answer to anything. Just to say, yeah, I completely endorse that. I think at the end of the day, it's outcomes that we want, and the reason fundamentally why we're doing this to improve people's lives and have a better outcome for the whole of the region. And I agree with you completely. Having a fulfilling career that can deliver for you, your family, and your whole community is far more important than, I don't want to denigrate philosophy students, but you know, I think I know what you're getting at, and I totally support that.
Okay, as there are no objections, I'll ask Lindsay to put something appropriate in our recommendations to support the approach that's been taken. Thank you very much. Nice paper. Nice to see we're largely on track as well. Thank you. So we're now moving on to the substantive item on education. And Daniel, you'll be taking us through this.
So we provide the paper, and myself and Miguel are here from the Employment Skills Duties Directorate to answer questions on it. So this paper relates to it's a profile of the expenditure from the academic year 2023 to 2024, and it outlines how we spent 133.5 million. So important to state that from the outset that the data for the 2024 to 25 academic year, that will be available from February onwards. And I think I also wanted to just state at the outset the kind of general data approach that we want to take here is to try and provide data in a more timely manner and provide it to local authorities. So to that end, we're having quite a lot of discussions with local authorities about how we give them better access to our data on this. So I would hope that members will see over the course of the next year that they'll have more access to the type of data that's in here, and hopefully at a more granular level, so they can look at how this aligns with strategy and how it aligns with place-based approaches that are being developed with local authority colleagues. And also, I think this is the adult education budget data in here. When we think about the pillar that Dan just took us through, hopefully you'll have access to more data across the employment and skills pillar. So you're not just going to be looking at one particular element here of skills and employment. You'll be looking at the overall pillar, which will, so there'll be a lot more data hopefully coming through to you on this. And that's one of the main things I've been trying to sort of get in place over the last year. So that said, the data here, it relates to this 133.5 million, and we've tried to give you an overview of the programs that we funded, where we funded them, skills levels, and cost per participant, and then look at numbers enrolled in different programs, and the proportion then that were unemployed at the start of the program, so you can get a flavour of who we've helped, but also where we've helped them. So we have the index multiple deprivation in here as well. You can see the concentration of delivery. And then we have limited outcome data. So you'll see that in the report that it's heavy on spend and outputs, but we don't have great outcome data. Again, something that we know, we're kind of very aware we need to try and improve that. It's difficult, it's costly, it's difficult to track people. We have good views of where they go if they go into one of the programs we fund next, but we don't have good views about where they go if they go into somebody else's funded program. And then we have to follow up and try and get employment data if they go into employment. So just some headlines from the report. So well, I guess the strategic focus is on the employment and skills strategy, but also you'll see increasingly on we're delivering on the things that are in the growth plan as part of this. As part of this, so we spent nearly all of the money, and you'll see across that 108 million went out through grants. That's to further education colleges and local authorities. And through independent training providers, we spent 22.8 million. That's across 47 different providers. So there's a good spread of funding here. and we spent 99.6% of the allocation. Table 2 in here, you can see the concentration by local authorities, the main concentration, the highest concentration obviously in Birmingham, at 49% of the funding. And that then you can see goes on to support 44% of the total people that were supported. So we've broken it down into different programs. So foundation skills, which go from entry level to level 1 and 2. And that includes statutory entitlements, English, functional, math skills, essential digital skills. And then ESOL, so English language acquisition, which goes from pre-entry through to level 2. Then into employment. So this is the bit of our funding that is specific bespoke programs to try and get people back into work. And then boot camps, this is where you get into the high level skills. So specific short programs to try and get people into specific industries and develop those skill sets. And then level 3+, which we're probably going to talk a bit more about. And then leadership and management. So this sort of supports people right through from low skills, hopefully through to high skills and keeping people into employment. And then the report details, we've worked with a number of employers, and it details the different costs for different types of programs. So we discussed earlier that the relatively higher cost of level 3 that we're trying to concentrate on, that the cost per participant has gone up from what you see in this report, which is the 23-24, where you've got higher level skills there at 2,374. It's over 3,000 now. So we are moving towards a higher quality, more intensive quality provision, which will get people into those key sectors. We discussed the fact that there's quite a range of different determinants around cost per participant, and it's not, so those figures are quite difficult to interpret without having a fairly detailed conversation about them. It's to do with the durations, resource requirements, but also if a resident lives within a band 1 of the index multiple deprivation, they attract a disadvantage uplift for the funding of their costs. So looking at the purely on cost is a bit problematic, but we've tried to be as transparent as possible there. Then in terms of the different programs, completions, and those that are employed or in education, we've sort of detailed that. You can see the inter-employment courses are at 55%, so that's doing what it should do, and that it has the strongest determinant of those going into employment. And then table 6 is our sorry, exactly, it's table 6 on page 6 of the report, where we've tried to go as far as we can with outcome data. Okay, do you want me to stop? There's a question.
Councillor McKee, did you have a question now, or do you want to wait till the end?
Well, either way, I'll ask it now, seeing I'm here now. The question I was going to ask was obviously because the money goes to the local authorities for them to sort of implement, if I've got that right. I was going to ask was, are all the local authorities getting the same bang for their buck? Like, are you happy that their methodology and the way they're all doing it? Because there will be variations between different local authorities, I would have thought. And also, I can imagine there's, I think as you were alluding to just there, that you know, some local authorities will get better results just naturally because of the different levels of obstacles they face. You know, so some will have the problem will be deeply ingrained and will need a lot more money and time to action it. Am I right in saying that? Where some others, it's just, you know, the problem's not quite so deep, so therefore, you know, just people pointing in the right direction is all it may need. Is that correct? Or
yeah, that fundamentally is correct. So they're doing different things. So what we do is we'll manage the local thought. So of the money that comes here, 80% of it goes out to local authorities and colleges, and we manage those as grants. And then the other 20% we use to basically plug the gaps and go for some higher level skills and things that the colleges can't do around independent training providers. So we manage the grants and the local the grants through the colleges and the local authorities. And Miguel, do you want to just give a sort of flavour of what that looks like, because it is very different?
It is. So generally, local authorities, adult education services will be in the lower rungs of the skills ladder. They will be reaching out to the most disadvantaged. 90% will be living in band 1 of the index of multiple deprivation, many of whom will be underrepresented in skills. So we could think, oh, do they go to ethnic minority groups? Not necessarily. The focus is, for example, in Birmingham, that participation in areas like King's Standing, Franklin, Rubery, Castle Vale, Glebe Farm, Chardon needs to increase, because they are equally disadvantaged as they are in Alum Rock, for example, but they are vastly underrepresented. Now, that is very different to what is happening in, for example, Dudley, where again the ethnic makeup is different, as well as the attainment is different. So they look at the previous attainment of the working age population. They look at what is happening at colleges and what are the population of 19 to 21-year-olds coming through the ranks and what they might need, and designing different programs. But they also work as a college compact, in which they look at things regionally in order to solve regional problems as well. So we could say that it's a dual approach. There are some principles that need to happen as a region, and there are some specific needs that need to be addressed as a locality. Some colleges go all the way down to lower super output area. So we are nearly at level of postcodes, because you can have a ward, say, for example, Bourneville. It's a well-off ward, but there are some pockets in Bourneville at lower super output area that need to be addressed. So it's a rather complex mosaic as well.
Yeah, if I could just say, a great example of that is Reddycap ward, or Sutton Reddycap to give it its full name. The ward
Yes.
itself comes out as pretty affluent, but inside that is Falcon Lodge that has,
Exactly.
A high level of deprivation in there.
Exactly. And we had Birmingham Adult Education Service going there into Falcon Lodge, offering essential digital skills, English and maths, but then they started delivering a little bit of health and social care as well, which tends to be an entry point for some of those residents then to move on to BMET provision.
That's brilliant.
Thank you, Richard.
So I'll just sort of conclude. I think that basically that we've got some data on age, and we've also got data on in the index of multiple deprivation on where we're delivering, and I think that what the data there sort of shows you is really that we are delivering in areas of greatest deprivation as per the IMD. But as Miguel said, I think when it comes to the specifics of delivery, we are, the local authorities are guiding that in particular to help those furthest away from the labour market, so that it is kind of a place-based approach, and that's something that we have to continue in the next couple of years as part of the single settlement. So the outcome data that we've got is limited, and we don't have data that helps us look at shares of participants that complete programs and then enter roles that are directly linked to the program that they were on, which I think was one of the exam questions I think you wanted us to look at. So we are committed to improving the outcome data, and we're looking at ways we can do that. And if there are other specific questions, we're kind of really keen to hear from you on them, because I think that what multi-annual settlement gives us is the opportunity to have a kind of a longer term focus on impact and outcomes. And now that we have the growth plan, we have West Midlands Works, and we're developing a better place-based approach with local authorities in partnership with us, then hopefully we can kind of align better the provision to those strategies. And the last thing I'll say is that we are committed to publishing more data and in a more timely manner, which allows comparison, which allows better understanding of what we're spending, what the outputs are, and what the outcomes are. And so if there are ideas or there are specific questions that you would like to look at with this data, then that would be really helpful to discuss. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. Miguel, I think you wanted to add something.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to add a little bit about the outcomes data, just for context, councillors, to point out that the Department for Education deleted the destinations entity. The destinations entity was the part of the system that where providers could record their outcomes. They stopped that for this year and the year before. So we had to set up a whole new system to collect these destinations. It's now ready. We actually are seeing better recording of outcomes and destinations than we used to under DFE. And now that the skills brief or the skills portfolio has gone to DWP, the DFE are looking to reinstate the destinations data, and they have invited us. We have a meeting with them this week to see what we have done. They want to get informed by us. So it's a nice example of how a combined authority is supporting now a government department on something as important as outcomes. So more on that during the year, and I'm sure that next scrutiny will be able to provide an update. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. I think we can now move on to questions. And I think Councillor Quinlan is the first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for this report. I just have got a few questions. On 4.4, leadership and management, I'm looking at table 4 there, and I can see participants 452. Of course, we're talking about year 23-24. But I'm just interested to know, knowing that we have got so many people that are retiring at that level, and therefore there may be gaps. Why we seem to have had this low participants, and have we got a plan to increase, to target this training, and to ensure that we wouldn't be having gaps at that level? Thank you.
If I may, I'm happy to respond. So as you rightly said, that is a couple of years old. Since then, we have a program of priorities in terms of leadership and management. University of Wolverhampton is delivering on this as well. I don't have the number in front of me, but I can tell you that the enrollments have increased. And I think one of the most important aspects of this approach now is that we are also targeting people, particularly women, in the health and social care sector, that are accidental managers. They are underpaid for their skills and what they are delivering in terms of the service, but we are training them to become qualified at level 3 and level 4 and level 5, so that they can move on into different roles, or also they can provide a better service, and they can also improve their work conditions. So that is a program that we are looking at different aspects. We are also looking at community leaders, and we are working with several community organizations on that. And we have a number of early retirees, as well as 60-year-old professionals that are going to take part in this program, coaching the young generation of leaders in the community. So we have a leadership program for the community, leadership program for accidental managers, and leadership program on construction, for example. We are seeing now a number of new proposals within our independent training providers under the construction umbrella, where we are looking at management in construction. So it will extend a little further. We do have to see, however, the cost of this. As been said before, we are now on a funding that is not increasing for the next 3 years, and therefore the pressure on funding will become greater and greater. So there will be a limit to what we can do. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
So it is indeed in the growth plan recognised as one of the a sort of a growth inhibitor, that we don't have adequate leadership management skills. within the region. And so therefore, as Miguel said, it is a focus for us. So you will see more of that coming through, particularly in future years in employment skills pillar. But also, I think as well as the programs that Miguel spoke about, that we don't necessarily also just need to look at leadership and management in a specific box here. It can also be embedded within some of the other training across the things that we fund. And I think the way in which we look at it in terms of value for money, that's kind of quite important as well, so that we maximise our funding, because leadership and management, can be part of the other things that are being delivered as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillors?
Yeah.
Councillor Scott?
Yeah, just a very quick one. Obviously, we've acknowledged already around some of the sort of changes that we've had with data, and obviously I acknowledge that this is quite old now, some of this data. I was wondering if you can give us a flavour of where this has really moved on since 23-24. If we look at the data for what's happened, say, so far this year, what's the big headline stuff that's changed? And obviously you've spoken about the cost of some of those level 3 courses, for example, and the quality changes, but what's the big stuff that's really changed since this? Was this still a good capture of where things are sitting?
In terms of the concentrate, so we still have this, we still can broadly break down into the same sorts of programs, and broadly break down in terms of a skills ladder, if you like, because what we have here is an approach in this year which is still consistent with the employment and skills strategy. So it gives the foundation skills in ESOL are still, you can still see that in the data. And then in terms of into employment boot camps, higher level skills, we're broadly doing kind of the same sorts of things, but I think with a greater concentration on, like I said, on quality, with more data. Because I think if you go back to when these programs were first started, and indeed then when they moved on, we didn't have a multi-annual settlement. We had an annual settlement with funding lines with very specific conditions attached to them. So actually, you wouldn't necessarily see a massive difference in terms of the programs. We've still got boot camps, we've still got high level skills. I think you'll see a difference in concentration, so moving up the value chain. And I think probably moving more towards the poles of that, so or the bottom and the top of the ladder. So helping more people with no qualifications to get that first qualification and get them on the first rung of the ladder, and then helping in a more specialist sense that the higher level skills. That I think is where we notice the biggest difference. We notice the biggest difference in terms of your propensity to be employed and your wage at level 3 and above. And then also we know we've still got that problem of a huge number of people with no qualification. That's where we haven't kind of necessarily closed the gap.
Miguel?
In addition to that, I think another aspect that we can see, and this speaks directly of quality and impact, is, for example, Birmingham City Council increased their enrollments at level 3 by 132 enrollments. That was 200,000 increase in their investment, and that in terms of the priority, 52% of that delivery was in priority areas. This was particularly around digital and cybersecurity, as well as digital marketing on data analytics. And that went from 7% priority areas in 23-24 up to 52%. So we have a few examples in which specific providers have massively increased their delivery in priority areas. We can see that is a proxy for quality and for impact as well. On the lower rungs, very briefly, what we are seeing for functional skills and English language acquisition, otherwise known as ESOL, is more foundation skills programs. So this is not only teaching learners how to speak English, but alongside that, understanding the way in which they can have more agency on their own business, on their own situations in life, developing critical thinking, creative thinking, cultural capital, social capital, and that is actually preparing residents for the future. What we don't want is to deliver low-level qualifications, low-level programs, including swaps, that just deliver them into terrible jobs for them the industry then move on through technology, and they don't have the social capital or the cultural capital to find the new opportunity. So they are back into the skill system, into the next not very good swap, into the next not very good job. We absolutely need to break that cycle, and we are starting to see some of that with a significant increase in foundation skills programs. By the way, this also costs more.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Just on a quick
Yeah,
one.
we've got.
Yeah, just like a quick one, Chair, about age. You know, I've spoken in the committee before about skills gaps in ages and sort of intergenerational, multi-generational unemployment. I think there's some really good news in here around the participation and outcomes for 50 plus in here as well. Wonder if there's anything more you might expand on around sort of what specific areas we're working with people sort of like age 50 plus, and we've obviously got the highest rate of people that are employed as an outcome. I wonder if there's anything more that you might want to add to that category. It's not all, because it can't all be about people starting out in their career. At age 50, you've got there.
I'm happy to take this one, Richard, if that's okay with you. So we do see more career changers. Some of them became unemployed as a result of COVID, and they started to look for new possibilities. So 2 years ago, we conducted a review of our level 3 provision that included a review of the threshold to be eligible for full funded provision. So we were the first region in the country that increased that threshold to the median wage, currently at around 35,000. This brought about a significant increase at level 3 and also from the older generations, for the 50 plus. I'm part of that older generation, if that helps. So I haven't been ageist or anything. So it is, we are seeing a shift. And I think this shift will have two guises. One for the people who want to change career, other for the people that are that have a genuine interest in volunteering. And we see this particularly in out education, engaging learners in full cost recovery provision, who then become volunteers to share their experience or their knowledge and expertise with 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds who need that additional support, and we have seen wonderful examples of bodies and community navigators as well. So there are lots of things, innovative things that we are testing within the region, and the rest of the country is starting to look at us as well in that sense.
I apologise now. I've got a whole series of questions and I've got a totally off the wall suggestion at the end. I'm going to ask a question in essence about Sandwell. I notice on Sandwell, the spend per head is lower than I would expect. And the qualifications people are getting out of it tend to be relatively low level qualifications at the end. So these are, I think, on pages 21 and 22, those two figures. So they're 5.47% of spend, whereas Coventry, Dudley's huge. And I would have thought Sandwell was as big as Dudley. But when you look at the number of people supported, they got more people supported than Dudley. Is that because that's what the local council believe is necessary for their area? Because if it is, I'm comfortable with it. It just struck me as out of line with the others. Miguel, were you going to?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good observation, and I'm happy to report that is changing. So that it's everything started in 2017, 16, 17, when the Command Authority started, and we got a memorandum of understanding from DFE where we maintain stability within the system. So those are the level of investment inherited from that time. And as part of the memorandum of understanding, we have to be very careful not to change funding dramatically. But there is another important factor, and that is the college. the previous leadership in Sandwell College was less interested in our skills provision. The current leadership is very interested, very proactive, and the investment has increased significantly. So we are going to see a shift. Now, I like to see a shift also at the higher levels and show more ambition for our residents. If you look at the ratio between English and Maths level 2 legal entitlements entry level 1 and level 2 at Sandwell College, you would be looking that Sandwell College invest about 60% on in 23-24, 60% on entry level versus 21% in level 2. If you look at Birmingham, it's 21% entry level versus 43 level 2. So we want to see a shift in that sense that goes more into the higher levels as people progress. That's not going to happen overnight, but we are onto that matter. In terms of the level of investment against Dudley, the other thing that we and other areas indeed, other thing that we need to take into consideration is that many people travel as well. So although you might see the participation in Dudley appearing to be higher, that's potentially because they are also traveling into Sandwell College. We have a new center for Sandwell College in Cradley Heath, where we expect many people from Brockmore who will find it very, very difficult to go to Health. So in college, for example, are more likely to go into Cradley Heath. So the college might hold some level of investment, but who they attract is really what dictates the balance in terms of participation by residents.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I asked the question because we don't have a representative from Sandwell here today, and I was a bit concerned. I think you've reassured me. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask one more question. Now, I'm going to ask Councillor Bateman to come in and break up my long series of questions. The completion rates on these training courses, which is on page 25, which is around 85%. I mean, that sounds to me pretty good because I checked part-time university completion rates and they're 62%. Are we able to benchmark this with, I don't know, Manchester or somewhere like that, just to check that we are getting the completions that we expect, and we can do that by training provider?
Yes, we can. There's a national database that I personally have tattooed into my memory. And so when we are doing performance management reviews with colleges, we bring the national rates. But it cannot be level 1, because when you look under the bonnet, level 1 could be a myriad of different courses. It has to be English functional skills level 2 versus English functional skills level 2. If we take again the example of Sandwell College, they have they are ranked second in the country in terms of achievement rates. The achievement rates are hugely high. So the national rate for functional skills is around 52%. Sandwell College is around in the high 80s to 90s. So we have excellent examples in the region. Joseph Chamberlain College, outstanding, Birmingham Auto Education Service, and a few others. Others are limping a little bit, and we are giving them challenge and support so that they can improve for our residents. So yes, absolutely, we look at that.
Thank you. That's very reassuring. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, it's a really reasonably simple question. Whilst the information that we've got is complex and enlightening, can somebody just explain to me how we're going to keep on top of the communication so that we carry these people along with us at every step we go forward? Because that's the one area I'm just looking at the paper. There's nothing that really says anything about comms.
Okay, so you probably are thinking about, so how do we keep in touch with these residents?
How do we? You just give a really good examples in terms of a number of colleges, how Sandwell looked and things and the like. For me, as we move forward, now we've got the integrated settlement, we've got a much more county-wide approach to trying to lift skills and the like. We've got the money to reflect it from the government.
Yeah.
How do we explain the comms behind all of these movements so that everybody feels that there is opportunity.
Okay, so we are going to enter into the second stage of a strategy, communications strategy, with marketing assets for the region to encourage and entice people, particularly in the underrepresented communities, to join skills programs and improve opportunity for them and their families and their communities. There is a joint work here. It cannot only be the responsibility of the combined authority, and it cannot only be the responsibility of the colleges. The colleges and adult education providers are the first line of communication and contact. So what happens on the ground needs to have a coherence regionally, because if a learner sees an announcement of a particular program and in Solihull, where they work, but they live in Birmingham, and there is a similar program in Birmingham, they need to be able to recognize the same thing. But most importantly, they need to be able to understand, if I go to this program, these are my options. I will potentially be able to earn this money, and it will be a much better opportunity for me. We need to translate all that information into something that is tangible, that speaks to the needs of those residents, and nobody better than the providers themselves to talk to the needs of those residents directly. So it's part of an ongoing strategy, and we're entering now the next stage of it.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And that's the point that I'm just making in relation to comms. To understand what's available, you have to understand what the terrain looks like. And we talked just recently. You talked just recently about House Owen, and people using House Owen might be living in Birmingham, or Birmingham or House Owen, the other way around. The issue really does boil down to how we keep a control. No, not a control. How we push forward our comms so that every level understands it. It's a complex area as we stand at the moment. Our connectivity is going to be absolutely crucial to maybe people picking up opportunities for extra trainings from where they live to where they want to go. I mean, for me, I think I don't want to push this too far. The comms issue hasn't really, it is an absolute importance. And at the present moment, all I think is a weakness for us at the same time. And I'd like somebody just to concentrate on how they can make sure that we can improve our comms so people throughout the piece know what's taking place, and feel confident about it. Otherwise, when we come to looking later at how successful we've been, we might find some holes. And so that's me, over and out.
Thank you. We'll take that on. We take that on board. Sorry, Richard.
Yeah, Councillor Bateman, I just wanted to add to what Miguel was talking about there, because I think we take this very seriously, and actually we've now got more of an opportunity to do something in this area. And we're developing a compact with the colleges, and I think this is a key aspect of the point I think you're making about how we can convene and coordinate the system to better serve the needs of residents. So the idea here is that we can try and move from colleges competing with each other to colleges being coordinated and working together where it's in their shared interest to do so. So it's not challenging college autonomy. What it is saying that if we share data a bit better, if we share an understanding of whose strengths lie where, then actually we don't need to compete for the same learners. We can signpost, and that moves us forward a little bit. When you look at the data that's in this report, we always use the figure that our funding here that comes to us is about 10% of the adult education spend in the region. So when you put it in that context, actually we can't do an awful lot with this money. Well, we can do an awful lot with this money, you look at the numbers, but actually in terms of what's going on within the system, this is a relatively small amount of the volume of activity, outputs and outcomes that are hopefully being achieved for individuals in the region. So working more closely with the colleges, I think we've got an opportunity to do some of the things that you're asking about there, Councillor Bateman. And I think actually the colleges see this as the moment to do it as well. You know, you'll see the Technical Excellence College at Dudley that was launched last year. There'll be further waves of technical excellence colleges, so the colleges know that actually through collaboration and putting for our sort of best regional case forward, we can attract more investment into the region, which will then benefit all learners, hopefully. So that's kind of the idea behind the college compact that we're developing, and in sort of Q1 of this year will be developed.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I think we can go on further and go get the knowledge of the branding away, get the knowledge of the facilities into the schools, actually, so that the knowledge of the progression into a skill base is part of the leaving process in a way. And if we were in virtually every educational facility, say, talking about the high schools now mainly, where young adults are coming out maybe unaware of what was available. And if the brand is there in the school as a form of progression,
yeah,
what you're thinking about in the colleges could also be there in the schools, and a natural environment for the young people to move into. Do I make a fair point?
Absolutely, yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, while I'm on while I've got the mic, the shape of Dudley is like a great tooth, and what we call the rounded tongue comes right the way into Bank from Blackheath and Halzowen. So there's this huge cleft into the shape of Dudley. So the Sandwell and Dudley in many areas it's very peculiar in that Sandwell virtually goes into the middle of Dudley.
Yeah.
And right from Blackheath and Quinton, right the way into Bank. So it's the peculiar shape of Dudley that really works against the logic of the numbers in the colleges. It's far more convenient to go down the road into Sandwell than it is to go halfway across Dudley. Yeah. Also, Dudley, I thought the Dudley's figures were low, actually, not high, in that being a dormitory area and a large area, our population is growing. It's probably 324,000 plus. So within the combined authority out of Birmingham, we are the second largest. After Coventry, we are Dudley is the second largest authority in the West Midlands. I always work in tenths, 40% for Birmingham and 10% for everybody else. But Coventry is about 330, and Dudley's growing at something like 324 plus on population. So working on a tenth, these figures are still low, in my opinion. You know, I would like to see the variation between Solihull and the rest of us is massive, but I would like to see a more even allocation of resources. And frankly, on a tenth, for Dudley, you'd be talking 13 million, or on a per capita allocation, you'd probably be talking 13 million plus. So I always look at our figures as a tenth, but we're doing a good job. And if we can get the brand or the concept of further education as a natural, movement after formal education, and have it in the minds of the young people that this is available and readily available. I like the 35,000 ceiling. It's still under average earnings, but it's better. And also, do we still have these time restrictions where people unemployed or out of work have got to be out of work for 6 or 18 months or whatever? Do we still have that kind of restriction on taking people in?
On our programs, I guess it depends. I'm not really sure if when people are signing up, if that's the type of data that's being collected. So I don't know actually. Miguel, do you know if
my sound wasn't great? Type of restrictions you mentioned. What restrictions?
Have they got to be unemployed for a certain period of time?
No, not anymore.
So actually, a young person wanting a skill or knowing they wanted to enter a skill base could come into this program as soon as they left school. Is that what you're saying?
As long as they are 19 years of age or older, yes.
Yes. Okay. These days, yes. Okay.
So we simplified our funding rules, and eligibility to enter into a program with full funding relates to their income. So they could also be underemployed. They could be on an income that is under £30,000 a year, and they would still be eligible. We also simplify the rules in terms of how long they have been living in the country, but we haven't seen a massive increase for that population as a result of that.
The country or the combined authority area?
In the combined authority is immediate. That's not the only restriction that entered into play since last year was for, whereas before on a skills bootcamp we were able to fund somebody who would live, for example, in Kidderminster, not anymore. So now the funding is absolutely only directed at people who live within the West Midlands Combined Authority within the 7 constituent areas. So we have removed a number of barriers and blockages so that more people can be trained as soon as they decide to join a course.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think time now for my off the wall idea, which comes on from where Councillor Bateman was talking. We need to get people to realise that some of these jobs that aren't currently filled, that can be filled by entering on the program, are really exciting jobs. I remember Dallas, I'm that old, and it caused an upsurge in people doing chemical engineering because it was on telly and people thought, cool, I wouldn't mind doing some of that. And we need to think about not only the practical stuff that Councillor Bateman was talking about, but can we get into, it wouldn't be telly necessarily nowadays, it would be social media, but can we actually look at that area to try and make some of the skill shortage areas we've got in the West Midlands sound really attractive? You know, as somebody who at the age of 56 became a plumber from being an HR director, I actually found that worthwhile to do, and it's what got me into politics. These jobs are good jobs, and what people don't understand is how good they really are. Because they're shortage professions, people tend to pay more for them than they would otherwise. So we should look at not only the practicalities, but also, I'm trying to find a word that makes them sound exciting, because I think that's what we should need to. It's not going to be easy to do, but maybe we have to talk to other combined authorities. I mean, for example, Manchester hosts all the television studios, doesn't it? Or a lot of them. So maybe we should work with Manchester on, because frankly, where the person is, that it comes out, you know, if on Coronation Street there is a character who's really good at making lots of money as a plumber, then maybe people will suddenly think, hang on, maybe that's something I want to do. I'm simplified it enormously, but this is not going to be easy, but can we think about that as well as the other stuff that Councillor Bateman was talking about? That would be helpful.
So I think we are in part of the work programme for this year inside our directorate is to develop the kind of the all age careers strategy. We think about an all age careers service. So we know that we have issues in careers service, if you like, traditionally within schools across the region, that it's patchy. It's great in some places, it doesn't exist in other places, and in some places it's quite dated in terms of what we're telling young people about the world of work. But it goes further than that into an all age career service, which gives a place where people can actually go and understand the types of careers that are available and the potential skills that might be needed in the next 5 to 10 years. So I think there's a lot in that, and I think some of the things that you talked about there, Chair, sort of a part of that thinking, really, to try and make sure that we have a place where people can actually understand what the next wave of priority sectors might actually offer people. And that's not just young people, it's all ages, because it's people who may be at a fork in the road, think about what training's available. Why would I do that, and what might be at the end of it, which for young people is of interest, but for older people may be more consequential, because you might be asking them, to move from potentially underemployment into a less certain future, and we need to fill that gap, that information gap that they have. So I think we're certainly looking at that, and that's part of what we're trying to do this year.
And if we can think about taking it to where they are rather than expecting them to come to us. For example, mosques tend to get very busy. My local Church of England church isn't. So working with places, I'm not just saying exclusively mosques, but it is, you know, shopping centres is another place where people go to, but take it to the people rather than expect the people to come to us. And think through where those might be and talking to community partners who might be able to help with that. So that was my off the wall idea. Unless anybody's got any other thoughts, I've got two others. Funny, the people you meet over Christmas. I met the head of the culinary college, which is part of the University College Birmingham.
Yeah.
And he told me that the skills that they are teaching in the culinary school in Solihull, which the authority is funding, are level 1 skills. And I said, what are they? And he said, oh, it's things like vegetable preparation. And to me, I do understand what, and hygiene certificates, all that kind of stuff. Please, can we not ignore those very early entry level skills? Because I can understand why you might think those aren't important, but I do understand then the stepping stone, because I talked to him about it. He said, well, once we've done that and they're then keen, we'll take them into Birmingham and teach them the rest of it. And I'm sure there are other things that are at that level, vocational skills that are at level 1, which are really entry level qualifications into a career. And hospitality, we've identified, is important, but there might be some others as well. And my final point is, I've been attempting to get a leadership course for somebody with another hat on. I cannot find a leadership course in the West Midlands. I can find management courses. Leadership is about how you get people to run towards the machine guns. Management is about ensuring the guys know how to load the tanks with ammunition, take their rifles apart and put them back together again, oiled, and all that kind of stuff. And you have enough people capable of doing all those kind of things. Leadership, if you take the sector I have in mind, which is the care home sector, highly regulated. Everybody gets extremely good at the technical skills of knowing what you need to do precisely. And that's how you get promoted. Then you end up running one of these places and your job isn't that anymore. Your job is actually getting level 1, level 2 people to be enthusiastic about their job and really caring with people. I could not find a leadership. I've spent hours on this. There are bits mixed in with something else, but you might want to find out whether there is actually a demand for that, for the leadership bit, separate from the management bit. I don't know how widespread it is, but I suspect in some of these industries, you're technical, then you start running a place. And the technical background is important, but it's motivating people is the key. So thanks for that. Now, in terms of recommendations, I think we support the approach. We would like more detail, as you have suggested, in future reports, particularly showing moves into employment for the, I'm going to call them training programs that are where that is the desired outcome, which are basically about level 2 and above vocational courses. ESOL is an underlying skill. It doesn't get you into a job, but it is very important. So if we could work on that, well, there's some other pieces. So yes, and my recommendation would be that we look at this again in a year's time. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes, agree.
Thank you.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. The on page 26, we've got a table of the deprived areas one, numbered from 1 to 9, sort of business. Why not name them? Why not give us an idea what we're talking about? Page 26,
Yeah.
14.
So what this table is doing is every output area within the region is divided up is put into one of 10 with the most to least deprived. So there's quite a lot within each one of those baskets. So we can name them, but there's a lot of, the list would be very, very long from one to within each basket of.
I think by denying us that information, you're leaving us with an anonymous version of a sanitised idea.
Yeah.
And what I think is that we need all the knowledge we can. If there's part of Dudley in there, I want to know where it is.
Yeah.
So they're not denying. I'm sure that. So what?
It isn't there.
We never requested it, so on stage 2 of it. So what you would like, Councillor Kettle, is for each of those groups, the postcodes, because that's how this is done, is it?
Yeah. We could produce a map.
A map?
A visual look at this. There's certainly no intention to deny it. It's just how you present an awful lot of stuff in one report. I think is what we're trying to harness here, just to give you a view of the fact that we are, as a region, concentrating investment where it's most needed. That's what the point we're trying to
I
make.
understand the logic, but I just like to, if you want to give us a map, then fine.
Yeah.
But I think to leave it anonymous with just numbers I think he's wrong.
Okay.
Make that point.
So you think you can colour code a map?
Yeah, we can present this in a more transparent way. Right, even in an annex, we could provide a longer list. So
that would be fine.
Yeah.
That's great. So we'll add that for a year's time. You'll be able to do that at the next report.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lovely. That's great. Any further comments or questions, councillors? Thank you. So we'll move on now to the work programme. Lindsay?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the work programme is included on page 35 within your pack. We have the Scrutiny Members Workshop, which Claire Nye will be taking members through some information to help prepare you for the budget Q&A. That will be taking place on the 20th of January. So the workshop, it will be held on the same day as Transport Scrutiny Committee on the 12th of January. So TDOS members will be in the building. Members of this committee, you're more than welcome to attend in person at 1:30, or there is a Teams link if that will be easier for you to join and participate within the workshop. So the next formal meeting of this committee will take place on the 16th of February. And that's all I had to say on the work programme.
So those key dates were the 12th of January at 1:30, and that is either Teams or in person here for the briefing on the budget. Then there's the Mayor Q&A on the 20th of January at 2:30, which is here. Obviously, if somebody's ill, then a Teams link will be provided. And the next full meeting of this committee is the 16th of February at 10 a.m. And then the final one for the year is the 30th of March at 10 a.m. So that would conclude our work for the year. Richard, Miguel, thank you very much indeed. That was extremely helpful.
Well, thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. That was really good. And with that, I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.